you're looking at anti-Trump activist U.S. District Judge James Boasberg of D.C. By now, you've likely heard of him. And that's because, for some odd reason, he keeps getting assigned to high-profile Trump cases, at least 4 thus far.
He has become the face of judicial overreach for the Republicans, beginning with his block on Trump's Venezuelan deportations. Lawmakers, rightfully so, are demanding to know how, if these assignments are truly random or is something else going on. One of those lawmakers joins us now. It's Texas Congressman Chip Roy. Congressman, look, a judge might get 1 case. This guy's gotten 4 cases. So what's Congress going to do to figure out, is there some shenanigans going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, of course there's shenanigans going on, but in this case, these are in violation of the typical rules of the way things work. But what's notable here is that Chuck Schumer raised a fuss because we had the Northern District of Texas, which was following all the rules and was simply, divvying out their cases, and certain conservative judges were getting those cases, and they didn't like that so much. So now the shoe's on the other foot. They're actually violating the rules because they want to stop the president's agenda. It's very specific. So we need to do something about this. We need to have Boasberg should come in and explain himself. And by the way, Republicans in the reconciliation package should be using our power of the purse and our ability to deal with jurisdiction of the courts to say, wait a minute, why do these D.C. courts have so much power? Why does Boasberg have so much power? Why shouldn't we limit the breadth of what they can do? Make them do parking tickets and fricking assault cases in D.C. and don't let them interfere with the rest of us in the states in this country. And one final point, I think what we ought to do is take away jurisdiction in the Article 3 courts for anybody who's a non-citizen or a non-LPR, a non-green card holder. In other words, if you're here illegally and you're not a citizen, you don't get to go in front of an Article 3 judge and make this case about your status. Go to the immigration judges. We're funding a bunch more of them in the reconciliation package. You know how reconciliation works, Jason. We're spending a lot of money to beat that up. Make them go there, let them decide, and let's remove them. Don't let them go to the Article 3 courts and jam those courts up when there's a lot of people having to wait to get justice who are American citizens.
Congressman, let's move on to this. House Speaker Mike Johnson looks to be ruling out some needed Medicaid changes, a tactic that could bring moderates on board, but Johnson says that the GOP will not look to change the federal share of Medicaid funding. And here's some Democrat outrage on Medicaid cuts.
I call on the Republican majority to make their pro-family rhetoric match their policy, put America's moms and babies first, and stop these proposed Medicaid cuts.
We're going to fight tooth and nail in the cauldron every day to make sure we protect America's health care. We don't need to cut health care to give Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos a tax break.
This is not about efficiency. It is not about cutting waste. This isn't about the budget, balancing the budget, dealing with our debt, or fiscal conservatism. Their motivation is disgusting. They are looking to cut health care for our constituents in order to pay for a gigantic tax cut for billionaires.
All right, Congressman, what has potentially been ruled out by the Speaker is lowering the reimbursement rate for Medicaid services and the per capita caps for the Medicaid Obamacare expansion recipients. Where on earth is slowing the spending of this program to $1.1 trillion a cut? When will the Republicans stand up for not bankrupting the United States of America?
Well, Dagan, first of all, thank you for putting a spotlight on this. You've been doing it now for several weeks so that people can actually understand the facts. And let me just note that the scuttle here on the Hill, when I talk to the reporters that, run around where we are, they're saying that Democrats can't believe, Democrat leadership, Democrat staff, Democrat members can't believe how much Republicans are diving in hard to defend Obamacare and to defend the worst parts of Obamacare, which was the Medicaid expansion and what you described, which is the 90% federal match rate, to go to the able-bodied, a population that should be working, the able-bodied instead of the vulnerable for whom Medicaid was created. Our position is pretty simple. If you can work, you shouldn't be getting benefits without working. If you are able-bodied, you shouldn't be getting more benefits than the vulnerable for whom it was created. If you are on Medicaid, you shouldn't be getting more benefits than people on Medicare get. And if you are ineligible or illegal, you're not a citizen, you shouldn't be getting benefits at all. And there shouldn't be scams, these money laundering scams that California is using. This is common sense stuff. And with all due respect to the Speaker, you can't take something off the table if those of us sitting at the table haven't agreed to take it off. It is a big table. We all need to come together. I've drawn no red lines, Dagan, but I have said the math has to add up. And if you're not willing to reform Medicaid, if you're not willing to find those savings, which, by the way, are hurting vulnerable Americans, hurting poor people, hurting people who need it, then shame on us. We should stand up and lead, and then we can do what we need to do to get tax cuts, get spending down, decrease deficits, and help Americans.
Texas and Florida did not expand Medicaid.
Correct.
But 40% of the total population of states like New York and California are on Medicaid. 40%. And those money laundering, this loophole that should be closed, California uses it. They tax the providers, take the money, and then spend it on Medicaid to get the reimbursement from the federal government. That state has used it to provide Medicaid for rich people and illegal aliens. That's where our federal tax dollars are going, and the Republicans won't put a stop to it. Congressman, final word.
Well, Dagan, I agree. And look, California is getting something like $119 billion in Medicaid dollars, which is bigger, I think, than Florida's entire budget. Look, we have an obligation to do what we said we would do. The president said we should get our deficits under control and balance the budget. He recognizes that Medicaid needs to be reformed. He's said so. His office has put it out. We should deliver. We should deliver responsibly so we can deliver on the tax cuts, the growth that we need, but also the health care reform so that we're not leaving the vulnerable on the outside looking in, and we're delivering deficit reduction for the American people rather than propping up a failed program. Republicans need to find the willingness to fight, and I appreciate your leadership on this yourself to highlight the issue.
Yeah, I've got a big set of lungs, unfortunately for some.
I've heard the same thing on the House floor from my colleagues.
Congressman, bless you, sir. Chip Roy.
Thank
Come
you.
back soon.
God bless y'all.